Hello, my name's Joe and welcome to this Xpres Technical training video. Today we'll be looking at the SEFA Clam Pro V2 and V3 press. We'll be using the V2 model, although they are pretty much identical. Some changes may be between the two of them. The first thing we're going to be looking at though is the electromagnet on the machine. Sometimes the connections can work their way loose, so initially we're going to be looking at the connections to the electromagnet and from the electromagnet. The electromagnet's job is to hold the press down, so when you pull down the clamp handle, the press should obviously just stay down and the timer should then begin. Sometimes you might find that the timer doesn't start or the machine doesn't actually hold the arm down at all. The arm just immediately lifts itself back up. If that's the case, the electromagnet's not doing its job. So it could just be a loose connection. So the first thing we're going to look at, checking those connections, making sure they're doing their job. So here is our SEFA Clam V2 press. Now the first connections we're going to look at are just under here. Now you might find it easier just to pull it down a little bit and just check the connections under here. It's quite hard to see, but I'll put a picture up on the screen here so that you can. The white connector block under there has two white wires going into it on one side and two black wires going into it on the other side. Just check those wires are connected under there in the connector block. If they are not connected, then we know that that's the problem. Once you've checked the connector block underneath the machine, now we just want to make sure that we disconnect the power socket from the back of the machine. Make sure that's all completely disconnected, and then remove this connector here. Normally it'll have this little clip on it, so just unclip this and remove the block connector from the side of the machine. Now underneath the machine, just under here, it's quite hard to see, but there is a small connector under there which actually powers the electromagnet. So what we need to do is just remove this here. Now you may need to unscrew it all the way and then just remove it. And then there's only 4 bolts that actually hold the head of the machine on. This one on this side, well, normally there's 2 on this side, ours only has the 1. Remove the 1 or 2 from this side of the machine, and then finally there's 2 on the other side as well. And the head of the machine can drop, so just be cautious when you're removing this. Make sure you do it nice and safely so that the head of the machine doesn't fall and be damaged. I'm just going to set the camera down here so that you can see me hold the head. So I'm just holding it from this little section here. I'm just going to unscrew the very final one from the back of the machine. And that has now been completely removed, just like that. Now we just need 1 screwdriver here and 1 screwdriver here, and we can then remove the head of the machine and just check inside for any loose connections there. Now finally we need to remove the 2 screws, 1 at the top, 1 at the back, so that we can see the internal wiring. Once again, just make sure the machine is completely disconnected from any power. It should be anyway at this point, but just in case you haven't, make sure you disconnect it from the power. Once you've removed these 2 screws, the head of the machine should then come off, and we should then be able to see the inside. Now, there's 2 wires that we're going to be looking at mainly here, and it is the blue wire, which you can see just down here. It's quite hard to see, but there's a blue wire just connected in just there, and the white wire, which should also be connected in the same way. If I move my hand, you should be able to see what it looks like in there. Now they should still be connected. Obviously, if they're not, you may need to send the press back to Xpres for repair at that point. However, also check the connections on the other end as well. So you can see the white wire going into a little block connector down there. Just make sure that's plugged in. You can always give it a little push, make sure it's properly in. And also check the white wire as well, make sure this isn't loose at all. So just give it a push again, give it a wiggle, make sure it doesn't come out. And finally, the blue wire, once again, should be connected, but just check that it's connected to the power switch here. Make sure it's all plugged in and connected. Once again, just give it a wiggle, make sure it's got a good connection, make sure nothing's loose or burned in there. As long as that's all connected like that, it should be completely fine.